When there is a student that receives medication during their day, or if they need to go to a place to lay down for a bit, to have some peace and quiet away from others, maybe to decompress, they have the option of going to the nurse's office for that quiet time. But it is mandatory that they go to the nurse's office to get the medication that they need during the day. Depending on the students, it will vary if they go independently or if they need a para or teacher to go along with them to get their medication. If we have a student that tends to elope and escape, maybe go hide, then they always will have a para go with them. One student who is in a wheelchair, and he does require medication during the day. He is 100% physically reliable on another person. He obviously would go with a para to physically get, in his wheelchair down to the nurse, and obviously needs that full-time assistance. Other than that, the students really are independent to go to the nurse and take care of themselves, and usually are pretty reliable to get there and get back. The gym or auditorium is probably the most favorite of all areas for events and PE class for the LID students. They love PE overall. All of the students have PE within the same time as the general education students from other classrooms. So they do not have a special class that is just only with the LID students. According to each individual's IEP, is based on whether they have a para and or other supports or accommodations. Students with physical limitations have in their IEP para support, and those accommodations specifically itemized. These supports come from the PE teacher that meets with the resource teacher, the physical therapist, and also the mobility specialist to make sure that the activities are best suited for that particular individual. They also have a buddy system set in place for PE that other gen ed students can volunteer for, and they are matched up with some of the special education students. And it really is just a great little system that we have. The gym also is used for programs and for singing with singing class, and also choir. And so if they choose to take that as an elective, then if they have it in their IEP and they need that accommodation and that support, then a para is set with them as well. The cafeteria and lunchroom. So the cafeteria and lunchroom is, well, it depends individual to individual and their preference of where they want to eat. So they all, unless they bring their lunch, they all do go to the cafeteria and they get their food independently. And then it is up to them to choose, and it can change within the year, but it is up to them to choose, do they want to eat in the lunchroom, or do they want to go back to the resource room and eat with a para and or the teacher. So currently, all except for one student who has a feeding tube goes to the cafeteria and they choose their lunch, and then they go to their choice of where they want to eat lunch. It is very, very loud in the cafeteria or in the lunchroom. So most often they do choose to come to the resource room and have lunch in there, and then they bring their trays back. And they are allowed probably at the beginning of the year about a week, maybe 2 weeks, to have some support and assistance and help choosing what foods they want and learning their lunch code or swiping it. But then after that, they are all independent, and unless of course they have that physical limitation, but currently there aren't, except for that one student that is in the wheelchair and has a feeding tube. So after 1 to 2 weeks, they become very independent and do that on their own. The locker area. So the resource students and the LID students, they have an area with their own lockers. It is right around the corner from where the Gen Ed have their lockers, and it is right around the corner also from the resource classroom. The special education students, they do not use a typical lock where it rotates back and forth to the left and right. They get a lock that has a key on it, so they can, and I think there's actually 2 keys. So the teacher has 1 key just in case, and then the student gets 1 key. They also keep a lot of their books not in their lockers, but within the resource room, so that they are always just readily available, and they have their own little cubbies within the resource room as well. They give about a week of support in using the key, and then after that the students are on their own, and they don't ever have any problems with that, so they're good to go. This is the life skills and community skills / cooking classroom. This is within the resource room. So the resource room has 2 separate rooms that are connected by a door. And so in addition to the elective cooking class that all students are offered, they also have cooking in the resource room. In addition to the cooking within the resource room, they also work on cleaning. So if in the future they live on their own, they will have some skills for cleaning. They have decision making within some of these additional skills learned. They learn about community skills such as shopping and community services and contributing, like recycling. Those are all focused on, and sometimes during this life skills and community skills class, they do go out into the community and have that generalization of those skills, and they put them into play and practice. So the resource teacher and the pairs are there to give that support during this class, and especially when they're out in the community. They try to do a ratio of 1 to 1. Sometimes it's 2 to 1, but typically they try to make it one para or teacher to 1 student. The other room that is connected to the life skills and community skills classroom is the education room, the work room, for math, reading, and writing. So in the resource room, they do have math, reading, and writing instruction. And again, there is para support in there along with the resource teacher. The resource teacher is typically the one that gives the math, reading, and writing instruction. And typically it is modified, but within those modifications, they are pretty general. within the ability for the resource teacher to do small group instruction. So within individual modifications, then that comes from the para that works one-on-one with the students. But the resource teacher does give an overall general instruction. And then that also is according to their IEP. And that also comes down to, their state tests, etc. They don't take those. They take the DLM.